أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue with our lesson in Muqaddimah Hadramiyah and also Adab in Sulukil Mureed. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue. Okay. Just to check my sound. Inshallah khair. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue our lesson. And may Allah bless our lesson, inshallah. Then Allah bless us with the understanding and tawfiq that we are able and to put into practice what we have learned, inshallah ta'ala. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. So inshallah we will enter into our kitab. And we are still at chapter 9, where Al-Imam Al-Haddad is speaking about the importance of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reflection, al-dhikr wal-fikr. So we have stopped at where he mentioned on the dhikr of La ilaha illallah. So maybe today I will just explain the meaning of La ilaha illallah because of its importance, so that inshallah when we recite La ilaha illallah we can apply some of this knowledge. Hopefully it will be of more effect in our remembrance. The sentence La ilaha illallah, there is a negation. There is a negation at the beginning. It is a total negation. And then we have the exception. So in the Arabic language, whenever you have negation followed by exception, it brings about the meaning of exclusivity. It brings in the meaning of exclusivity, from the word exclusive. So when we say La ilaha illallah, we are negating there are no God illallah, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the divine. Other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are creation. So this is basically the general meaning about this particular statement. Again, when we say La ilaha, so here we have the word ilah. Ilah in the Arabic language basically can be translated to God. And of course when we speak about God, we speak about the divine attributes. We speak about the divine attributes. So there are certain attributes that are necessary for the divine for God. So in the knowledge of Aqidah, we learn about the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Qidam. That God cannot have a beginning. God cannot have a beginning. The moment something has a beginning, it is a creation. Because it is preceded by non-existence, and it is in need of a creator to bring it into existence. And likewise, God cannot have an ending. God cannot have an ending. If God has an ending, it shows that it is contingent. Because something that is contingent accepts existence and non-existence. Likewise, the attributes of Al-Qudra, for example, Sifat Ma'ani, that God possess power. So we look at this universe and we see the effects of the power of Allah. The power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who brought everything into existence. So this is the effect of the Qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is none like Allah, or there is none who has the attributes of Allah, or has the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in causing any effect. So cause and effect and accretions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the attribute of Wahdaniyah, for example, we say that Allah is one in His essence, one in His attributes, and one in His actions, three things. One in His essence, one in His attributes, one in His actions, meaning there is no other entity like the entity of Allah. There is no one who possesses any attributes like the attributes of Allah, and there is none other than Allah who possesses the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning in giving any effect. So this is the meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and Allah is one in His essence. So when we negate, we say La ilaha, we are negating the any form of existence any form any of existence, whether it is in the entity or the attributes or the actions. There is none illallah, except any Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say that Allah is not in need any of everything, whereas everything is in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing any can give effect except Allah is one who gives effect. Nothing any possess any of the attributes any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nothing any is like Allah in terms any of His essence and His entity. So this is the meaning in the Quran when Allah said, "Laisa kamislihi shay'un wa huwas sami'ul basir." There are some people who ask, a lot of people nowadays, for example, they are influenced by the idea of anthropomorphism, that is the idea of tajsim. So there are questions, some people ask, for example, Allah said in the Quran, "Laisa kamislihi shay." Allah is not like any His creation, not like anything other than Him. So we cannot say there is something other than Allah like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But some people are asking, but then Allah said, "Wa huwa sami'ul basir." But Allah said after that He is all hearing and He is all seeing. So this all hearing and all seeing, we are Allah is teaching us about His names. So why can't we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a body? Why can't we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a body? Because the Mujassima, the people who ascribe to this idea of anthropomorphism, or the idea of tajsim, they believe that God is a body. Na'udzubillah min zalik. Ahlul Sunnah refuted them from last time until today, that if God is a body, meaning He is in need of space and place, and all these things are impossible for God. Allah cannot be ihtiyaj, He cannot have this attribute of ihtiyaj, meaning in need of something. We are in need of a place, we are in need of food and drink. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of anything, so we have to negate. So that is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, "Kan Allah wa laysa ma'ahu shay." Allah exists and nothing exists with Him. So everything other than Allah, we cannot ascribe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you see, some people they have this misunderstanding in this. Their misunderstanding is the verse in the Quran, "Laisa kamislihi shay wa huwas sami'ul basir." So they thought that yes, nothing is like Allah, but there are certain things that we can ascribe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the attributes of the creation. So why? Because they ask, for example, then how about the word as-sami' al-alim? So now when we look at as-sami' and alim, it is different than ascribing what you call it jism, or we say Allah is jasim. These two different things. When we speak about as-sami' and al-alim, these are what we call it the sifat al-ma'ani. Sifat al-ma'ani. It is not any sifat ainiyah. It is not any something that is of a substance, meaning it is an attribute that stand by the entity. Although this is a bit technical in aqidah, but this is the thing. We cannot make it as though sifat ma'ani is the same as sifat ainiyah. You see, it is different when we say Allah is a body. If a person claims that Allah is a body, and that body sits on top of the arash, this is clearly ascribing an attribute from the attributes of the creation, because creations are basically a body. So making similarity like this makes a person fell into tajsim. Tajsim meaning the idea of God as a body. But when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing, and we say human beings also hear, does it is this the same as saying that Allah is a body? Certainly it's not the same. So when we speak about hearing, we are speaking about an attribute that is from ma'na. It is an attribute that is what you call it that stands with the essence. So it is not a substance. It is not a substance. So there is a difference between an essence and an attribute or accident. So when we speak about the attributes of the creations, certainly the attributes any of the creations any are not the same as the attributes any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot any be saying any, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears, human being and he hears. And there is similarity between the hearing of Allah and the hearing of human beings. It is not any similar. How does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears? Only Allah knows, but it is not any the same as any our hearing. We are hearing any by our ears, by our eardrums and so on. All this any has to be negated. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala any is hearing, and Allah knows any what you call it, his own any attribute. So we cannot any understand the reality of the attributes any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I hope any this is clear, inshallah. This basically to respond or to answer one any of the questions any that was asked any by someone. Now any we go back any to the word any la ilaha illallah, the phrase any la ilaha illallah. But anyway, any if you have any questions, you can ask through the YouTube comment. And if there is any question, you can ask. I will read any the YouTube any comment. Facebook comments any sometimes you have to reload, and sometimes any you miss out any of those questions. If you have questions any you can ask what you call it in the YouTube comments and inshallah. So this basically earlier I mentioned the meaning any of la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, there is any no God any but Allah. Any God here any refers any to an entity that possesses divine attributes. So there is none like Allah in terms any of his essence, none like Allah in terms any of his attributes, none like Allah in terms any of his actions, illallah, any except any Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we recite la ilaha illallah, so we understand that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divine. Everything happens any by Allah, everything is known by Allah, everything any is willed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the creations any are all in need any of Allah, and Allah is not in need of the creations, and Allah has no beginning, has no ending, not similar to his any creations, and all these attributes any that we learn in the knowledge of Aqidah. So Al-Imam Al-Haddad any mentioned, this is the remembrance instituted for those who begin the path any to Allah. So basically Al-Imam Al-Haddad any is saying, for beginners, it is important any that they get used any to this recitation. But of course, I will recommend any that you study first any the meaning. You study any the meaning. And the way to study the meaning of La ilaha illallah is basically to go through the full syllabus any of a particular book in Aqidah. That is basically the meaning any of La ilaha illallah. Because any books in Aqidah usually is divided into two categories. Any one is La ilaha illallah, the other one is Muhammadun Rasulullah. So La ilaha illallah is a chapter of Ilahiyat. Muhammadun Rasulullah is a chapter any of Nubuwat. So learn any about the chapter of Ilahiyat. So when you go into the chapter of Ilahiyat and in Aqidah, you will learn the 20 attributes. So we have Sifat Nafsiyah, Sifat Salbiyah, Sifat Ma'ani, Sifat Ma'nawiyah. So all these definitions and understanding, everything and it has to be at the back any of our mind. So when we recite any La ilaha illallah, yani these meanings we put any into the presence any of our conscience. Then inshallah yani you will see how yani it will give the effect. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq. Enjoying to keep to and return with it for those ending the journey. So it's for the beginners and it's also any for the advanced. For the beginners and also any for the advanced. So it is a nutrition any for the soul. La ilaha illallah is one of the important forms any of adhkar, remembrance any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So not only any for the beginners, but it is basically a continuous any process of equipping any ourselves any with this what you call it nutrition any for our souls. He whose delight is in tasting some of the secrets of the path and who wants some of its realities. So this is the thing any about learning any aqidah. One aspect any is about knowledge, the other one any is about experience. So we have any to differentiate any between these two. You can study any aqidah, but you might not have the experience of enlivening any this tawheed. How do you attain any this experience any by dhikr wal fiqh? Dhikr wal fiqh. This is what Al-Imam Al-Haddad any mentioned, dhikr wal fiqh. This is how when we put into practice the knowledge any that we have learned. Then only inshallah ta'ala it will give us any the what you call it, the sweetness any of tawheed. And this is any important any for all of us, and especially in these times any of fitna. we are in need any of equipping any ourselves any with the strength any of iman and dhikrullah. So inshallah, I think for now we just stop here because any of time, we do not have much time in reality. So I will go into our next kitab, Muqaddimah Hadgami.